Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about projects that fail due to changes. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, I've seen that many software development projects fail due to changes in requirements or lack of understanding of the requirements. Do you know what universities won't teach students how to elicit and, and document requirements from customers? Well, because universities are usually there to teach you how to do the bare bone basics, and I mean, you could always make the argument that any school, well, why are you not making everybody into a full-fledged healthy adult that can earn a lot of money, pay a lot of taxes, and do community work? And like, where do you draw the line for what the education system is responsible for teaching? That would be my question. Because in theory, you could say that the education system is responsible for basically raising your kids, and depending on the parents, that might be very much what is going on. I'm pretty sure there's more than a few teachers out there who can vouch for that. They have, on occasion, willingly or unwillingly, it doesn't really matter, like they see situations occur where the schools or the education system more or less has to go above and beyond for a child or a student or so forth and so forth. And in some cases, that might not in of itself be enough. And I argue that it's the same thing here. So first and foremost, it wouldn't matter if the universities taught you this, because this has nothing to do. This is not something, I argue at the very least, is that the universities are going to be able to teach to begin with, because for the first and foremost, universities have no knowledge of how to do this, because the education systems are usually not staffed with professional grade software developers who have this knowledge. And one thing that is extremely important here is that I would go as far as to say that this is a skill that I can't even teach seasoned veterans this. Like, I swear to you guys, like I can't. If you ask me now to go and sit down and talk to, like, maybe I could get someone to sort of get it and so forth. And this is a topic that it's relevant for every single software team in the entire world. And I can tell you that on average, depending on the team, you're not going to be able to teach them this. I have failed many times to teach software developers how to think about feature requirements and things like that. This, I would argue, is a problem that is not solved necessarily by education. It has to do with experience and, I argue, a fair bit of personal emotional intelligence. So something that I usually argue for is that if you're going to teach something in school or so forth, usually you will see that it's easier for you to teach a mechanical operation or something that is a concrete skill that, or I guess something that you need to execute on. Spelling, for example, mathematics is another one. But if you're going to teach people emotional intelligence and nuanced thinking and social interaction and like so forth, because this basically, understanding how to get good requirements is one part that you understand your craft to a point where you really understand how to do basically everything. And the other thing is that you need to understand and be able to have like empathy and emotional intelligence and connect to other people in a meaningful way, so that you truly understand their way of thinking and how to come up with suggestions for how to structure requirements or so, and clarify and all of this sort of stuff. That is, if you didn't know that, that is literally the job of the product manager. It's the job of the engineering manager. Like every single HR person in the whole world is doing that exact thing. And there might be a reason as to why we don't just put that on the software developers as well. Because at some point, we're going to have to understand that, if you're going to be able to do this, then, and I've actually said this before, guys, at what point do we sort of labor, like put too much on as to on the responsibility? Like at what point do we say, yeah, I think that is enough in terms of requirements that we can put on a software developer? Because fundamentally what it comes down to is that there will be no cutoff point. Now I know that this is critical information. Like I know for a fact that changing requirements and understanding and like having a business mindset, and I'm the guy who preaches for all this. I am fully aware of that all of these things are complete, like it's required in order to ship anything successful. But at the same time, when is it? Where is the end of this? Because we could put, you need to know security as well as a pen tester, because that's you're building the thing, right? And I mean, there are other professions like carpenters or whatever. Like at some point, you're going to have to just accept that you can't just add more stuff on top of an individual. The thing I suggest is not that you have universities teach these things, because as I said, like they will not be able to do this in any meaningful way, because it basically comes down to experience with people. So my favorite example of this sort of thing would be if you work in sales, for example, or something similar to that. That is a very different beast, where I think that most people, at least the friends that I have who works in sales, they will understand, they will tell you that you might learn some basics from school about how to build relationships with customers and get to know them and like understand their needs and so forth. But most of that, like their talent for making connections and socializing with people, comes from exposure, talking to a lot of people over their career and like having discussions and basically having trials where they need to sort of do this sort of thing. So you can absolutely put that part on a university to have them like take on a project, interview customers, and etc., etc., etc. But my argument is that it's easier for you as a company to do this than it is for a university to do this, because the only thing the company really has to do here is to assert or to make it the responsibility of, say, the product manager, or, well, it should be at the very least, or the scrum master or the tech lead or whoever who is in anyone in the leadership role. I do this all the time, where I make it a rule within my team, and I call it like my basic rule is that regardless of if you're a front-end developer, back-end developer, junior, senior, I don't care. Every single person who is in this team should know what I call the common area, the general stuff. In other words, you should know when the stand-up is and how to facilitate the stand-up. I don't care if you're a junior or a senior, and like nobody is like you're a human. You should be able to move a card on a board or something similar to that. Same thing is you should know what we're working on right now, what the deliveries are, the status of things and so forth. And the reason why I want everybody to know that, myself included, is because that gives us a picture of how well we're doing, and if someone needs help or if there's something that is unspecified or so forth and so forth, we take shared ownership of the work that we're doing, because we don't work on a story. You don't own a story. You are part of a team that is responsible for all the deliveries. And when I do this, I make sure that everything that is relevant for the team, that they all have to have a shared understanding of in order for us to deliver the right thing, that they are expected to know this. And if you put that requirement on people, you will very quickly figure out if this is something that they can do or if it's something they can't do. And there's always a little bit of a learning curve here, but that is usually easier than having the education system sort of come up with fake scenarios and stuff like that, because as I said, this is not a hard rule. This is much more liquid than that. Like there are no, again, if we take sales, there are absolutely some general guidelines for how to make a sale or how to create a connection with another person. But I think most salespeople will agree with me when I say that no school can create like a set of absolute rules that they just have to teach people and then they can go and sell anything, right? It is a much more organic type of thing in terms of it's almost like an art form in of itself. And I argue that this is the same sort of thing, and usually this stuff is easier taught through doing and actually trying and like engaging and stuff like that than studying like theory and stuff like that. You can absolutely take some theory behind and have some theory with it, right? That I'm not dismissing that whatsoever, but I think that this is a more efficient approach than having universities do it. So what I want you to take away from this is that yes, it is true that requirements change and stuff like that, but honestly, I don't think that this is something you can put on the universities, because frankly speaking, it's the same thing. I had a question a while back about documentation. How do you teach people how to write good documentation? And the real answer is that you don't, because there are only so many things that people are going to be able to care about, and usually the easiest way if you want to streamline in education has to do with basically trying to break things down into concrete executable things, or things that can be very easily measured. But it's very difficult for you to measure how effective are you at getting requirements. It's a very vague thing, and it's a very organic thing. It's the same thing with sales. Like, nobody is going to win a sales trophy for speaking or for calculating the numbers quicker than anybody else. It comes down to, can you make the sale? And that is as sort of concrete we can get about that thing, because it's a very tricky thing. And there are so many factors that play in. If you can have an organic conversation with someone, really understand them and connect with them, it's sort of tricky. In a sense, I would say this: the way that me and probably a lot of other people are jealous and envious of people who have a really good knack for mathematics, they're really good and just intuitively understand mathematics, I would say that this is another version of that, where there are people who lack the social graces, the mannerisms, the emotional intelligence, empathy, and all that stuff to really connect with another human being and make that feel natural, and then actually get them to talk to you and engage and stuff like that. Introvert, extrovert, I'm not saying necessarily that, because it doesn't mean exactly that, but I hope you sort of get what I'm saying, that this is something where some people are going to be really, really great at it organically, because they know how to connect with people and really empathize with them and understand them, and some people are going to be so hopelessly lost that it's basically never going to be possible for them to do this effectively. And that's why I tell people that the most important way to learn this skill, I argue, is to understand that if you change your perspective from that you are just responsible for knowing what's on your story card, to saying that you are equally responsible as everybody else to know what every single card on your storyboard means and what it means to deliver that thing. We're not saying that you should be able to do it yourself necessarily, a front-end developer, back-end developer. Like, these are not what we're saying. I'm saying that you are responsible for all the cards together with everybody else. And so if someone gets sick and you can't pick it up, you should be able to pick it up. And that is holistic ownership, as I call it, like owning everything that is common to your team. And that is a lot easier to do on the job than anywhere else, I argue. And the best way of doing it is to make sure that you have a product manager, a tech lead, or someone like that who understands the value of this and understands that it is pretty important that your software developers have a rough understanding of where everything is heading and like the general discussions that are going on and so forth in the team. Because then when they write code, if they don't really know, or like the scope changes, or they don't understand the environment they find themselves in, they're inevitably going to write code that causes this exact issue. And it is by having that holistic understanding that they can make the right choices in the code. But to do that, you're going to have to create that environment, because even if you were to teach people in university how to do this, if you're not doing it on the job, you're still going to write shit code. Have a great day.